And ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the one, the only, Miss Heather Parady. Good morning, Heather. How are
What's
you?
up? How's it going?
It's going so good. How are
Good
you?
morning.
Good
I'm so
morning.
excited.
That's right, man. Now you're coming to us hot out of Georgia, right? Is that what I
That's
understand?
right.
Hot
And
from Georgia.
literally hot. Like it is 80 degrees in the south. Like we don't play when it hits like February. We're getting our flip-flops ready. Like it's warm.
Nice. So it's already 80 out there. My goodness. We had snow over here in Kentucky like 2 days ago. It was snowing.
No, we don't do none of that. We
Yeah,
do not do none of that. It
you,
snows. We're out at Walmart getting the bread and the milk. I mean, it's a serious thing.
you guys are out on that. Heather, I love your story. I love your energy. I love your personality. I really enjoyed being on your podcast, the Unconventional Leaders podcast. So I just am so glad you're here with me this morning. I really am. Thank you so much.
It's an honor. It's an
Yeah.
honor. Your story was next level, and it's really everything that we were about. It's just like what you've been able to create and how you've redesigned your life and leaned into your greatness. It's a story that needs to be told because it gives people hope. So thank you for joining us.
No, you're so awesome. And your story needs to be told as well. But this is a morning show. This is hashtag Rise and Grind, the number one most watched morning show in America, and also the only one that goes live at 5:30 a.m. every single day. Woo, woo, right? I picked a good time slot. Very little competition in this time slot. So being a morning show, we've got to talk about it. You've studied a lot of successful people. You yourself have had a lot of success. And somebody was asking already if you were single or available. Let's let them know you are married, right,
Yes,
Heather?
yes, I am. I am awesome, awesome, very patient man.
So you're married and you're successful. You've done lots of things. You've studied lots of success. But let's talk about morning routines real quick. All right, because this is a
Do it.
morning show, and I do believe the way that we start our day is super powerful. And when you study success, you can't help but come across the fact that most successful people have a solid morning routine. So, what does your morning routine normally look like if you're not popping on live with me at 5:30 in the morning?
Sure. Well, it looked like just like what this morning was right before this, except I would have added in a little bit of exercise, which I'll do right after this interview. I've been practicing. I love when people say practicing gratitude because it's not something that you just do. It's something that you develop and grow into. I've been practicing the first thing when I wake up in the morning is immediately just start thanking God for something. Just first thing before I even get out of bed. And then also to visualize just like how the day is going to go and just something good, something positive. Set that intention out there. I make coffee right after that. I'm not going to lie to you. That is like a number one priority. So I walk downstairs and I hit that go button. Grab a cup of coffee, read, journal. I want to go ahead and write out gratitude as well. Been practicing, again, there's that word, breath work and a little bit of stillness, meditation. Breath work is hard for me. I don't like it. I do not enjoy it, but there's a lot of cool scientific benefits to it, which I'm not smart enough to tell you about just now, but look it up, Google it. It's pretty cool. And then also too, just getting outside, exercising. I love that you put so much emphasis on a morning routine because the day is so unpredictable. It gets away from you and you cannot guarantee that you're going to do some of these things unless you just get them out of the way at the very beginning because you're like, I'll exercise later. I'll read later. No, you won't because life's crazy, and you'll look up and it's the end of the day and it's over. So yeah, mornings are super powerful. And like you said, it's a common theme with almost everybody that I've connected with. They have that implemented into their life.
Yes, beautiful. Absolutely 100%. So we start with God, immediately followed by coffee, right?
Oh,
God and coffee.
he made it. He made it.
God made the coffee, right? So you start with God, lean into some coffee, hit some gratitude after that. Make sure to take care of yourself physically. All of those things, mind, body, spirit. Now, you mentioned breath work. Share with me, you don't like the breath work, but you do the breath work. What's that all about and why is that important?
You always got to be stretching. You always got to be growing. You always got to be leaning into something that you're uncomfortable with. And, getting up early is comfortable for me. Like I enjoy it now. I know a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? But I actually enjoy getting up in the morning, doing my thing. So it's gotten into like a habitual thing, which is perfect. That's what you need to do. But we also got to be figuring out, okay, how can I stretch a little bit more? And for me, meditation's really difficult for me because as you can see, I'm kind of a naturally bouncy, hyper person. And then breath work, focusing on, controlling your breath. And it's really a practice of awareness and becoming really present with your body. So the whole mindfulness thing and all of that. Again, it's super uncomfortable, but it stretches me. So a lot of times people can practice, 10, 15 minutes of breath work. I'm like up to like 3 or 4 minutes. Like I am elementary with it, but you got to start somewhere. I always want to be a beginner at something. You know what I mean? Like be a beginner at something, no matter what it is, because that's how we grow.
I love that. Be a beginner at something. I'm writing that sucker down right there as a reminder. We'll turn that sucker into a meme today. Those of you that are watching here on hashtag Rise and Grind, as you can see, Heather Parady is full of energy. She is an amazing human. We're going to dive in super deep. The best way that we can honor a guest here on Rise and Grind, because it does take a lot to jump on here, be live, 5:30 in the morning. Best way we can honor our guest is to share this out as far and wide as humanly possible. So make sure you share Heather with the rest of the world. We're going to continue to dive in. So Heather, let's talk a little bit about your world. Like, okay, so we've woken up, we've started our day, we've done that in a powerful way. And what does your world look like? So you're running the Unconventional Leader podcast. You've got your household that you've got to take care of. You're also in the online like training space. You're helping other people develop their businesses on online and doing things like that. So tell me what a day in the life of Heather Parady looks like.
Well, the days look a lot different right now, hashtag COVID-19, but quote, normal life, whatever that means. I work from home. I have the luxury of doing that. I have an in-home office and studio, and, working from home and working for yourself there's so many benefits. I think a big misconception is that you just kind of chillax all day, drink coffee. It's packed, it's back to back, which I love. I mean, I love the idea of designing your life. And I think if we have the freedom and ability and interest, because desire is important. There's no right or wrong, of creating something. There's so much, it's a lot of work, but there's also flexibility in it. So normal day when the kids aren't here, the husband's not here, all this stuff, I make some more coffee because, you need that. And I usually have client calls back to back. I have interviews doing either, me or getting on someone else's show. I work with mastermind groups, all that. There's a lot of just Zoom calls. So this is kind of like my arena. Everybody's like, oh, we're going to Zoom. I'm like, I've been on Zoom.
Right.
The thing that I'm most grateful for is the flexibility, because if my daughter has like, they schedule these things at weird times, like 10 a.m., we're going to sing a turkey song on Thanksgiving. I'm like, what? Like normal JOBs, it'd be really hard to go to that. But I have the freedom to, move my schedule around and be available to her, which means the world to me. But again, there's a sacrifice there. It's a lot of work, but that's the upside to it.
Well, yeah, you're right. There is a lot of sacrifice to it. There's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of flexibility. You're going to catch the recitals if you need to, and you can do the parent teacher conference at 2:00 in the afternoon if they need you to do that. But man, you lose some sleep hours, and you're always running and always on. So when did you? We've been talking this week. The series has been, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Ooh.
And just talking about like the different sections of a marathon. Marathon runners they tend to break it down into 3 segments. The first 10 miles is something that we do with our head. We're very calculated. We make sure to hold ourselves back, to pace ourselves, know that we're in this for the long haul. The second 10, we use our training. We kind of go into cruise control. We let our body do its thing for that second 10. That's where we're ramping up the pace a little bit, but we're just letting our body do what we've been trained to do. And then the last, it's only 6.2 miles, but they call it the last 10 because it's so hard. The last 10 is all heart, all passion. That's where you just flail, right? Whatever, your form doesn't matter anymore. You just gotta let it all go with all the passion and fury that you have. So share with us this journey that you've kind of gone on, and with that mindset and mentality of it being a marathon, not a sprint. I think a lot of people, when they jump into the entrepreneurial world, or they think about going into the business for themselves, or they try something new, they become a beginner at something, like you said, and they don't have success like right out the gate, they quit, man. I see it around me all the time. right? But you've been doing this for years. You've been grinding. You've been putting it in. So let's talk about that. How has that mindset of knowing you're in this for the long haul affected your success overall?
Oh, what a fantastic question. And I love that analogy of the marathon because it is so true. And I'm so grateful it's that way because when quote success, whatever that looks like, hits people without that training at the very beginning, sometimes it's not sustainable because they haven't built up those muscles to withstand all of the success that comes. You see people rise really fast and they fall really quickly as well because they haven't developed the character, the routines, the muscle to carry that weight because it is a weight. I mean, again, like we mentioned, there's a lot of the perks of stuff, but there's also a lot of responsibility. So I'm grateful for that first 10 miles of being strategic and putting that training in and taking maybe things a little slower than what you want. I think you hit it on the head. Like we have to have a vision bigger than ourselves where we're doing this for the long haul because of an impact reason. Because if we're looking for results and quick fixes, you're going to be sorely disappointed in the beginning. Like you don't see results. I can't tell you how many times it happened yesterday. Somebody's like, I want to start a podcast. When can I start monetizing it? I'm like, I mean, I get it. Like I get it that you need to make some money doing something, but if we go into something with the idea of what can I get out of this, as opposed to what can I give,
Right.
We're not really going to ever get much out of it because we have to go into the service. And like what you talk about, always serving, always giving, and results follow from that. And from like a spiritual perspective, that's just the way God set things up. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and align ourselves with Him and put people first. I love Seth Godin talks about selling and marketing and all that stuff. It's at the root of it. It's deep empathy. And when you do something well, it comes from a place of giving and service where you don't mind putting in those extra reps. Again, it's hard, but that's just the way God set things up. Like you've got to build that muscle. You've got to sow, I don't know, what was that? Plant the seed, sow it later. I mean, I totally jacked that up. But you know what I mean? There's
harvest. Plant the seeds now, harvest them later. Yep.
I love Jesus. I don't remember how that was put, but yeah, we can't change that system. That's the way that it is. So if you go into something with the mindset that, I'm going to eat kale for a week, and I'm going to look like a competitor, that's just not the way it works. It is work. We've got to acknowledge that. We've got to embrace it. I love the word grind because it sounds cool, but it's also super descriptive of the real life stuff of it. It is a grind.
No doubt. It is work. It is work day in, day out. And you've been putting in the work. So you created something from nothing with your Unconventional Leaders podcast. Now you're interviewing like all kinds of crazy high level people. You've been doing I love the way that your podcast and your website is laid out and the way that you highlight people. I also love the way that you do an interview. Now you admittedly say that you, like in your studies of successful people, you found like the underdog, the unconventional ones to really resonate with your soul. That's your jam. And so you're like on this mission to find these underdogs. What is it about the underdog that you so connect with? Is it something in your personal experience, or what is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, we all have our own story of things we've come from, and I certainly do as well. My dad, he grew up in the foster care system, and I always saw him as one of the greatest people in the world, even though he had a lot of addiction problems and emotional issues and stuff like that. And I always just saw greatness in him. I don't know if that's just because he's my dad or what, but I kind of grew up in a kind of crazy environment and always felt a little less than. I know it sounds crazy, but I did not have any social interaction growing up. I was homeschooled and literally left in isolation because my mom had some real trust issues with people. I don't know. It's really strange. I didn't really start getting out and being it's the typical homeschool thing, but it was almost like at a really different level.
Yeah.
So I just felt super isolated and alone most of my life. And when I started transitioning into adulthood and started shifting things, there was a lot of deep insecurity that came from me because, just some things. I don't want to go into all that, but I started really diving into personal development. Thank God for it. It literally radically changed my life. People are like, oh, why do you podcast? I'm like, because podcasts changed my life. Shows like this changed my life because it gave me hope. It was like, you don't have to be this. You can pick, like you can choose,
Mm, mm,
it's not the cards that you're handed. Like you can grab some new cards, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. And
I like
when I
that.
started really diving into this, I started seeing like, whoa, these people have been through things too. Like, whoa, Oprah, she's one of the most powerful women in the world. And look at her story. You know what I mean? Eric Thomas, I know you love him. Look at his story. Look what happened. And so I noticed a trend. I was like, oh, shoot, look throughout history. Forget personal development, history. Some of the greatest leaders and influencers were the underdog. They were the ones that people discounted. They were the ones that had like super internal battles of worth and figuring out like why me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Switching that around to like, how can I use this pain and do something great with it? But when I started digging into, like podcasts and different shows and stuff, I didn't really see a lot of representation of that. I saw kind of like this one stereotypical mold of what leadership looked like. And so, I was told a few years ago by one of my a few years ago, I am so much older than I think I am. By my one a long time ago. Woo! Bless him. That if you notice a problem and it bothers you, that means you're called to fix it.
Mm.
And so we can sit here and complain about things of like, oh, I wish, this was happening in the world. And I wish there were shows about this. And I wish that this existed and blah, blah, blah. Well, if it bothers you so much, guess what? God put that burden on you to maybe step up and provide that answer. So instead of pointing to problems, leaders find solutions. So I just knew that this thing that kept coming back to, if something that's always coming back to you, that's a hint from God. Like lean into that. So yeah, I ended up going to school, studying therapy and psychology and all that. And by the time it was all over with, I was like, I can't let this go. I know this is a calling on my life to share these stories and to kind of take a leap that doesn't necessarily make sense. So I turned down a couple of job offers, didn't renew my license, and just jumped into this full time, figured out how to make money on the side to support this.
Right.
And did it. And so somebody asked me yesterday, they're like, what are you most grateful for? I'm like, I am so grateful that I did the thing that scared the hell out of me a few years ago, because I would never have been able to experience some of this stuff. But it took, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't like, yeah, I'm going to do this. It was like crying, like, Jesus, please don't let me fail. Please let this work.
It's funny that you say that. I'm sorry, I'm taking notes because you're dropping so many amazing nuggets and wisdom. I love it. But when I quit my normal job, my retail in-store comfortable secure job to step out into this world a little bit more, the first place I went was church, where I was there for 3 hours praying like 3 hours. Like, really? Should I do this? God, is this the right? It's so
Yep.
comfortable over here. It's really comfortable over here. Now you're pushing me over into this zone over here. Well, that's incredible. That's amazing. Like, I love where you said, if you notice there's a problem and it bothers you, then you need to go fix it. Do something about it. Create. If God put that on your heart to go out and make an impact, that's how God works. I like how you've said that a couple times throughout this episode. You're like, that's just how it works, right? We got to give before we got to give before we get, right? That's how it works. God made us that way. Super, super incredible stuff. I love it. So you've dove in. Now, why do you think, now that you've studied all these underdogs and you know that they have these stories, and I know that you mentioned like they kind of invoke these stories and use it to kind of to push them forward. Why do you think that some people go through struggles and trials and never really bounce back? And then there's those that dig in and embrace and do bounce back. Like, what do you think is the separator? It seems like there's more people that get stuck in that struggle and never bounce back, then, so that it is a rare case when somebody does, right? And they become a big leader like an Eric Thomas or like an Oprah. But why is it so rare? Why can't everybody tap and invoke that spirit that comes from their past to help them rise?
Isn't that a good question? Question of the century. Short answer, I fully do not know. There's a lot of variables there that I just think it's going to be like one of those, hey, God, what's up with that one day? Here's an interesting philosophy or a thought. In psychology, there's, all these different theorists who sit around with their pipes and argued about why we were the way we were, and then wrote all these books. And that's where a lot of the therapy and stuff's kind of formed from, is all these different old dudes back in the 20s and 30s who had these ideas. And one of them that I really love is this guy named Alfred Adler. And his thought was that we are all born with a sense of inferiority about something. There is some kind of hole. It could be that you grew up in poverty, and so you've always felt less than. It could be that, you were a woman and, you were discriminated against, or maybe you were, a different color than the people around you, or you had it could be anything. Your dad didn't love you the way that you needed. You didn't get hugs. I mean, it could be a variety of things, but whatever the thing that makes you feel like that you're separated from the pack, you conceptualize as this inferiority. And so his idea was that we all work to overcompensate for that inferiority in different way. People compensate in different ways. And so the kind of natural tendency, the primal, is to rise above that and kind of prove on a practical example of this would be, let's say you grew up in poverty, and so you're just obsessed with appearing rich, and so you go into a lot of debt and you have all these cars, and your mind is constantly thinking about that, because you feel like if you lean into that, then that's going to fill that hole inside of you, right? His thought was that the way we overcome that is becoming immersed and obsessed with societal good, and that inferiority never really goes away, but we can learn how to shift that energy into something that helps other people. And that's where true fulfillment comes in, because as compensating in other ways doesn't fill that void. I believe, as a faith-based gal, that void is filled by God, and that he gives you love for other people. And even though we might still struggle, people are always like, oh, you're so confident, Heather. Dude, I struggle with insecurity like on the regular, and so I still have wounds from things that's happened to me. But, with God's grace, I'm overcoming it. And so to answer your question, like, why do some people choose this or that? I really think it's a spiritual thing, man. I think that there's some kind of intervention there. I think that something has to come into your heart and like start shifting towards love. And I don't know if that can be something that you can conceptualize and put a formula around. I think that's why it's so important for those of us who carry light, whether you think that's the universe or God or whatever that may be, to give that light as much as possible, because that can penetrate somebody in ways that you can't even verbalize, and maybe shift something inside of them where they can start, using some of that insecurity and shifting it and turning that into to something bigger. And how often do you hear people say, like, I don't know what it was, but there was something. I think that's God. I think that's a higher power. Yeah.
Girl, you have so many layers. So I could see your mind tapping in. You're like tapping into this resource over here. You're tapping into this resource over here. You can tell you're an incredible student. You retain information, and you're an empath, right? You feel and you sense, and it's really powerful watching your mind go.
That's also being hyper.
But I love it, and what you're saying there is true, man. I love how you touched on true fulfillment. And true fulfillment only comes from using the things that are inside you, your story, your history, your light, shining that on others and making an impact in other people's lives. And I think you're right. It's a spiritual thing to understand that. I didn't used to get that. I used to think it was all about me for the longest, that I had no responsibility to make an impact in anyone else's life, anyone else's life. And it wasn't until I got that spiritual understanding that we are all connected by design, with gifts, with lights, with the ability to impact others in a positive way. And that is something that you do every single day. And I am so thankful that you are shining your light out there in the world, because we all need it. And you've been shining your light this morning here on #RiseAndGrind. And that's why our showtime has already zipped by. We're already over on time, which is incredible, but I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. So here's what we're going to do. For those of you that need to get out of here right now, if you got to go, we got to respect your morning routine. I totally get it. So if you need to get out of here, do me a favor, hit that share button. I'm still going to give away one more hoodie, and it's the best way to honor our guest, Mrs. Heather Parady. Sorry about that, Heather. Mrs. Heather Parady. It's the best way to honor our guests is to hit that share button. And Heather, if they wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Find me anywhere on social at Heather Parady. I'm all the places, including TikTok. You want to see the best TikTok? No, they're terrible. Don't look me up over there. But all the other places, look me up at Heather Parady.
Right. I'm trying the TikTok thing too, and it's not working so well for me. But I've made a couple posts. But look, if you want to connect with Heather, please do that. Please honor her. Share this sucker out. She's an incredible human. Blow her up the way that we do as Rising Grinders. We blow people up whenever they come in the show. We really honor them. I'm really thankful for them. Do all of those things. And if you got to get out of here, go start to attack your day, attack your weekend, and come back here Monday morning, 5:30 a.m. We're going to do this all over again on hashtag Rise and Grind. But for those of you that are going to stay, I think we're going to spend just a little bit more time with Heather, if it's okay with you. Heather, do you need to get out of here yet?
I'm good. Let's do it.
Let's talk about it. All right. I'm going to ask you just a couple more questions. So
Sure.
in this journey, okay, so you're trucking right along. You're like living life and you're doing kind of, I don't want to say the normal stuff, but you're working a normal job. Then you feel this call and this compel and you take the leap and you jump into this world. And now you've been interviewing amazing people and you're also training and you're connecting and you know, all the things that come with it. So share with me, maybe like, let's start with guests. So as you've interviewed different guests, you know, over the years, what has that experience really taught you? How have you leveled up since you started that first day? And maybe even touch on, you know, one or two of the guests or something that you maybe found really profound that just made a massive impact in your life as you've been on this journey.
So, whoa, what? Let me back it up a little bit. Give you kind of a little analogy. First day of grad school, my professor said, I want you to write a paper on, I forgot what he called it. It was a fancy term, like theory of human psychosis or development. It was this fancy word for saying what's wrong with people,
Right.
like what's wrong with the world and how do we fix them? I wrote this really long paper because I went into it thinking, man, I know what's up. Like I know what's wrong with everybody and, you know, how we need to fix it and all that. It was long. I wrote it really fast. 2.5 years later, when it was like our very last week, he said, guess what? That's your final project. For your final assignment, write, you know, your theory of human development and why are we the way we are. And I struggled with that paper and it was so much shorter because my questions were just like, man, I don't know. Like opening up to knowledge, it just really makes you understand how vast and broad things and complex things really are, and how small sometimes we are when we think we're so knowledgeable and so big. And so to answer your question, you know, at the very beginning of the podcast, you know, I thought I was so much more certain and so much more confident, like in a not good way.
Yeah.
And 3 years later, I'm just like, wow, man, I'm such a student. I have so much to learn. I think that's been the biggest takeaway. And second is the real tangibleness of energy and what you can feel energy on people, even through Zoom. It's amazing. And as, you know, guests have leveled up and I've, you know, connected with, you know, more highly successful people who have really gone through the grind that you talk about, put in those reps, you can feel their presence through the Zoom call. And so it's really solidified in me that like energy is tangible. You can feel it. And people really dedicated themselves to get to that point where they're so well versed, they carry presence with them that goes way, way, way beyond their physical words. Man, that's addictive, man. I want that so bad.
Yeah. So how do you get that, right? Like, okay, the tangible energy, I agree with you. It's there, right? We have this like sixth sense. Some people can feel it. I mean, instantly, and you can protrude it. So they carry their, you said that they have this presence. They carry themselves in just a certain way, and you've become a student of that. So if I was like a person that doesn't have that, like, what would you say if I don't have that confidence? I'm like kind of shy over here in the corner. Like, what could I put into tangible so that I can look more like that? Because I want to be that guy that walks into a room and people are like, yeah, that's the dude. What do I got to do?
I would say listen to whatever Glenn Lundy is telling you to do in the morning and become obsessed with that. What you are teaching Glenn, these people to do and really forming this habit and this routine, it's not fluffy. It's not like cute. It's not just this thing you do. It is the basis of everything. literally. And I can say that with confidence, that I know that this stuff you're teaching, these principles of, doing them in this order and all of that stuff, that is laying the foundation for these leaders, these people in your group, to go to the next level. And it's not a one-time shop thing. It's something that we return to over and over and over again as leaders. And I think that is the first step. It's the second step, and that's the third step, and it's the step you keep doing through the whole process. So yeah, that.
That's and guys, I did not pay Heather to say that or tell Heather to say that. We did not prep ahead of this interview.
True.
But
It's true.
it really is the morning routine, and keeping that consistent and solid no matter what's going on in the world or around you. I feel like that is a huge separator from some of the most successful people in the world that I've had the opportunity to interview or to study. And it's all about how you start your day. It really is. It's just that simple, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, I guess that's just how God made it for us, right? Just God and coffee.
Got it. That's it. That's all you need. That's it. Simple.
Simple. All right, Heather, here's what I'm going to do. All right. We're going to let these people out of here because everybody's still here. I told them all they could go and they could just move on to their morning routine. And everybody's like, no, we're going to stay right here with Heather. They love you. It's awesome. So what I want to do is I want to put you on top of a mountain real quick. All right. Heather Parady, you're on top of a mountain. And all of civilization is at the bottom of the mountain. They're all looking up at you and they're cheering, Heather, 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 right? Heather, Heather. And you're like, got your phone out. You're like Instagram storying, everybody cheering for you, right?
Hardcore,
yeah. A selfie with all of civilization in the frame, right? Yeah. So they're cheering, Heather, Heather, Heather. And somebody walks up and they give you a microphone. And they say, Heather, you have 2 minutes to drop some wisdom on all of civilization, some practical application, something that they can apply in their life today, this week, this month, this year. What are you going to tell them?
That the gift and the calling of God is irrevocable on your life. And the thing that sets you apart is the thing you're going to use for his glory. Period. No matter what you've been through, you're loved, you're cherished. In fact, when you feel like all this stuff that disqualifies you, it's actually the very thing that qualifies you and makes you the most powerful influencer leader in that space, because people feel seen by you. They can feel heard by you. Not to discredit what you've been through, instead to use it for something greater. And don't give a rat's, about what other people say and what other people think, because at the end of the day, there's only going to be a few people by your bedside that those opinions matter. And then whoever you serve, God, universe, or whatever, that opinion matters. Everything else, we love them, we serve them, we honor them, but don't let them dictate your life.
Wow. Is that all? Is that all, Heather? Holy smokes!
I have to make more time for selfies, because that's pretty cool. Like, you don't get that chance very often. TikTok video, can you imagine?
You are incredible. And yes, I love that. The thing that sets you apart is the thing that qualifies you. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. That's it. The thing that you're insecure about. The thing that you feel makes you feel less than. That's really God's gift to you, that if you can lean into that, embrace that, and allow that to shine, that's how you make an impact in other people's lives and on this planet. I stinking love that. Heather, you are an amazing human being, clearly uniquely made by the God of the universe. The God who made everything made you to be the absolute best version of yourself that you can possibly be. And you're living it out, girl. I know you are. You're doing it daily. You're putting in the work. You're grinding. You're banging your head against the wall on Tuesday, and you're getting back up on Wednesday, and you're thanking God, and you're drinking your coffee, and all those decisions that you're making. All those decisions that you're making, I want you to know they are making an impact clearly on your friends, your family members, your coworkers, and you being here with us on Rise and Grind today has made a massive impact on me and all my fellow Rise and Grinders all across the country, and we absolutely love you for it. Thank you so much for being on our show today.
What a phenomenal way to start my day. I feel so good. I'm about to go work out and I'm going to be running a little faster. So this is so great. Thank you so much. You're so generous.
No, you're so awesome. Hang out here just for just a second. I'm gonna say bye to everybody else, and I'll come right back to you. Yo, that was. I told you she was gonna be amazing on top of amazing on top of amazing. Or actually, my words were superhuman on top of superhuman, or superhuman times superhuman time. I don't remember exactly which words I used. All I know is that I told you she would be incredible, and I wasn't lying. I was telling you the truth. So if you agree, if you thought Heather was awesome, mash that share button. Let's push her out into the universe, because I believe if we can change the way people start the day and make a massive impact on this planet,